sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi On The Sidelines. This is Rabbi Erez Sherman of Sinai Temple in Los Angeles, and this week we are joined by Sinai Temple's own Josh Altman. Josh, from the $1 Million Listing on Bravo, author of 2 amazing books, if you haven't read it yet, It's Your Move, a couple of years ago, bestseller, and the newest book, The Altman Close, which we'll talk about as well, and the intersection of sports and faith. We're going to talk faith, we're going to talk real estate, but most people don't know about that famous sports career that I was privy to witness in person as a kid growing up in Syracuse University at the Carrier Dome. So let's talk Super Bowl, because we're just a couple of days off of that.
First of all, I just want to say, this is why I love you, Rabbi. I mean, for many different reasons, but you always make me feel way more athletic than I am now, talking about my career in sports 20 years ago. But yes, I was just in Scottsdale for Super Bowl weekend. Lots of events, lots of clients, yeah.
And the Super Bowl this year ended with a kick. With a kick. Put yourself in Harrison Butker's shoes. Would you have made that kick?
Yeah, of course. Listen, kickers, we have ice water in our veins. We live for that. Being an ex-college kicker, those are those situations that you prepare for in your head 1 million times in practice. So I love seeing that, and a lot of pressure out there. A lot of pressure.
So the intersection of sports and faith is also really a lot of pressure. And in this book right here, The Altman Close, you speak so often about the lessons that you learn on the athletic field, specifically to what you do in real estate. And I actually think very similar lessons to lessons of faith. But you tell a great story about how you became a better kicker going to football camp and really finalizing or understanding what the Altman Close is about. Maybe you can tell that story about how you got to football camp so you can get that 6 extra yards on your kick and your parents can go on vacation.
Well, look, I mean, for those people who don't know me, let's see, I grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and I was a soccer player. My brother and I, we were born and bred soccer players. And, my brother Matt, who's my older brother, is 3 years older, we decided to go to a Boston College football game. And there were so many people in the stands that, my brother looked at me and said, I think we're in the wrong sport. Because you go to our soccer games, and there was like 6 or 7 people watching. And the kicker comes out on the field and kicks a field goal, and we look at each other and we go, we can do that. It's kind of like a soccer ball. And next thing you know, Matt started because he was older and just went out, started kicking footballs. It was like the first day of kicking and just crushing 45-yard field goals, 50-yard field goals. And then, of course, I got into it as well. We were both heavily recruited. My brother was a kicker for University of Colorado, and I was a kicker for Syracuse. So, yeah, I mean, look, that whole thing of switching over from soccer into football, it was a big deal at the time, too, back in the day. You couldn't play both sports in Boston, so you had to choose. And
it's called the weather, which we don't have out here.
Yeah, exactly. You're right. So you couldn't play both. We had to choose, so we left the sport that we loved and that we were really good at, and the coach was like, don't go, just to go be place kickers, which many people back in the day didn't just do that. They were the quarterback and the kicker, or the wide receiver and the kicker, or something like that. We were just kickers. It was to the point where the coach didn't even know what to do with us during practice, because okay, so I don't know, go kick. Like, what are we gonna do? So we came up in Boston. We were kickers. We had pretty solid careers up until about college ended, and then of course got into the rest of our lives. But the having sports background for us growing up and really being heavily involved in sports was by far one of the most important parts of our success today. And I talk about that all the time, and we can really do a deep dive into that. But everything from preparation and what you learn on the field to that game time mentality, everything, we can talk about that.
So it's the Big East in the 90s. You decide to actually eliminate the weather going to the Carrier Dome so we don't have to worry about the wind.
Yeah.
And you have a career at Syracuse, Big East championship rings, I believe the Orange Bowl and the Fiesta Bowl.
I should have brought them today.
I've seen them before.
Okay, all right.
But let's check out what Dan Patrick said about your career at Syracuse and the best kicker to never kick. Dan Patrick show.
So we tried to get your career stats at Syracuse, but they said you have to have a career to get career stats. So Josh, are we inflating our resume here as a place kicker at Syracuse?
Listen, I was the best kicker ever never to play.
But you had a uniform.
Oh, yeah. I have some great pictures. I have 2 championship rings, Big East championships.
Really?
The Fiesta Bowl and Orange Bowl. Donovan McNabb was my quarterback. I literally had the greatest experience. I ran out of the tunnel in front of 80,000 people, and I never made it on the field.
Just a correction, it's not 80,000, I believe it's 52,001. But the Carrier Dome.
Oh, is that? Oh, okay. All right. Well, the away games, the bowl games.
Oh, that's true.
Kickoff Classic, Michigan Stadium.
That is true. That is the Loud House.
But yeah, that was Dan. Dan loves making fun of me. He's a big fan of $1 Million Listing LA. And I've been on the Dan Patrick show 3 times. And every time he continually tries to make fun of me. He'll send me texts after an episode. He's probably the funniest guy I've ever met.
And so you have this kicking career behind really an amazing kicker, Nate Trout, who I remember as a kid as well.
So crazy.
What is it like to know that you're good and good enough, but still not be able to pass that threshold?
Yeah, some kickers, they actually go to the schools where they're the opening for the first spot is, right? Because they know they're going to play. I went to Syracuse for a couple different reasons. One, my mom didn't want me to go too far away. Okay, I was going to choose between Miami and Arizona, and she's like, Syracuse, it's right there. I could be there in an hour. So that was one of the reasons why I went there too. Obviously, is the dome because there's no wind.
Amazing.
And of course the education. I mean, it's a really good school. So that's why I ended up there. Of course, it was very difficult at the time to sit on the sidelines during a game, especially when we were up. Because remember, these were the years when Donovan McNabb was my quarterback. We were top 5 in the country.
Yep.
In fact, I just ran into a guy last week at Super Bowl named Al Wilson, who was on Tennessee. He was the linebacker.
Were you at that game with Will Allen and the interference?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, Labor Day weekend.
So, and we were talking about that, and that. Listen, we won that game. We would have been, and that was a baloney call.
Yes.
We won that game. We would have been number 1 in the country.
Yep.
We would have won, and so that was it. So we were always contenders when I was there. But sitting on the sidelines, because most of our games were extremely lopsided, 45-7. And I'd look at the coach and be like, Coach, put me in. Let me get my minute. Let me get my minute of glory. And Nate Trout, who was the first string kicker, was on the way to break like every scoring record. And so every field goal counted for him getting closer to that record, which I think at some point he did beat that. So I never got in. I got the rings, Big East championship, Fiesta Bowl, Orange Bowl, all of that, but I never got in.
So take that to the business side of things in the real estate, because some people never get in.
Yeah.
But maybe they're good enough. Is it luck? Is it faith? What are those moments that you realize, you know what, I can do this? And as you say in your book, you're 24/7.
Yeah.
Not everybody's 24/7 has the grind to do that.
So, yeah, look, a lot of it's timing, right? A lot of it's timing. I do believe, of course, some of it is luck, but luck for me is preparation and being ready to go and being 100% at all times. And when that opportunity presents itself, you take advantage of that opportunity. So the luck thing is very little, but, it could be timing, and timing, unfortunately, was off for me. Maybe that was for the best. It was years later. My brother and I think it was like 5-6 years ago, we get a call from somebody who was an ex-kicker on the Patriots. And, I'm from Boston originally. Diehard Patriots fan. I've gone to all the Super Bowls. The kicker calls and says, hey, I was an ex-kicker for the Patriots. One of the kickers on the team. I'm now into real estate. I'd love to come work for you.
Wow.
My brother says, Josh, come here. Puts him on speaker. He goes, we got to ask you something. How much did you make as a kicker? And he told us, and we looked at each other and we said, we made the right move.
And it's interesting.
Not that I had the choice, but we made the right
when
move.
you talk about luck and timing, you talk about open, work, and close.
Yeah.
That every opportunity is a moment of opening. And I've seen you, obviously, not just on the screen, but in person. How do you have in your mind that every single person, and I believe that's actually a Jewish value, that every single person you look at has the dignity and value? You actually talk about in your book about how people look. And obviously people should look like the uniform that a real estate agent, a rabbi, an
Right.
athlete, whatever.
Right.
But you also say that the person that may be disheveled has the opportunity to actualize that one day.
Yeah, and you know, when I talk about look, it's that everybody has their cape, right? They're a
Cape or cape up.
Yeah. Everybody has their uniform in life.
Yes.
And really it's you are a billboard for yourself, for your business. And unfortunately, but it's just the way the world works, people judge you immediately. The first thing they judge you, just like the first time they judge a house, is from the front before they walk in. They judge a person by their looks and what they look like before they even approach them or talk to them. So, you know, what I talk about is dress for success. But open and close and that whole thing, look, I feel that every person in my business, at least in real estate, and look, we've been in the business for a long time. We sell about $4 million of real estate every single day of the year. We sold $2.5 billion in the past 24 months. We were the #1 team in the country last year. And so, you know, for me, it's everybody knows somebody who wants to buy or sell a house, even if you don't personally, but you know somebody who does. A lot of the things that my brother and I did, which, you know, our story it's an interesting story. In the first book, It's Your Move, it talks about the rise of our business, and then of course the fall in 2007 when the economy collapsed, when we lost everything, and then the build up again. But you know, for us, it's really seeing opportunity when it's in front of you. And when Matt and I, for instance, when we lost everything, we used to still go to all these restaurants and order water with ice and lemon and pretend that it was alcohol. We'd sit at the bar of these fancy restaurants and we would talk to everybody at the bar, because we knew that, you know, if you want to, you want to surround yourself with the type of clientele that you want to sell to. So even if we went to the hottest, fanciest restaurants in LA, even though we didn't have much money and we couldn't afford to eat there, at least we pretended to be in that crowd, and then we're talking to these people, and they all know people, and you know, that's how we started to build our business. The old fake it till you make it approach at that time, because we couldn't be in that crowd otherwise.
And so you made it, and we're gonna look at the next episode of Dan Patrick that speaks about the castle that you bought and how you made it in that castle. Dan Patrick Part 2.
Oh, well, I have my own. I mean, I've flipped, you know, over a dozen houses, and one of them went really bad. And it was a crazy learning experience. But all I know is this. I was in the mortgage business. Everything was going great. Next thing I know, I'm closing my mortgage company. My brother and I, a week before the economy collapsed way back in the day, ended up buying a castle in the Hollywood Hills. A week before. And we're stuck.
Wait,
you know,
was this Nicolas Cage's castle?
Yeah, pretty much. It's like, you know who buys castles? Kings, okay?
What's it about a castle? And the next question is actually about a sanctuary. So let's talk about the castle
Okay,
first.
all right. Let's get through the castle first. So it was early 2007. We had, at the time, you know, we started in the mailroom. We were making $6.50 an hour. After a year, my brother and I saved up $5,000 to our name each. That was all the money we had. We put that 10 grand together. We went to a bank. They had something called 100% financing at that time, which is, of course, fast forward
Blessed memory.
why everything fell apart. So we took that 10. We bought our first condo for, it was like $400,000. And we flipped it for $600 3 or 4 months later. And we took that money and then flipped it into another and another. And now, you know, now we're getting there. We're making real money. The rise is very quick. And right before the economy collapsed, and you would think, I was in the mortgage business at that time, I would have seen it, which nobody saw coming. We took all the money on all the previous 12 flips and decided to buy this castle in the Hollywood Hills with the turrets or whatever they're called, like an actual castle-looking house. And we bought it because it was 2 master bedrooms, or owner's suites, as we call them now. And so it was perfect for my brother and I. And we're in this giant house, this multi-million-dollar castle, and the economy collapsed. And we end up losing everything, including the house and all our cars and all that stuff. It's all in the book. You got to read it. But and then I went from, the mailroom to the castle. And then after we lost the castle, I ended up just living back into an apartment. And there were so many different lessons to be learned from that rise and fall. And thankfully at the time, it was just my brother and I. So, all we had to do was take care of ourselves.
Right.
Thankfully, I did not have kids at the time, which obviously I have now. And I didn't have family to take care of, because it would have been a totally different story. So the learning lessons still today, that fall from the top made me who I am today, and was probably one of the best learning experiences of my life.
So we're sitting on a bima in the sanctuary on a pulpit where we tell
I've always wanted to be up here, by the way. Can I just put that out here? I've always wanted to be up here. I haven't gotten the call from the rabbi, but I'm here.
Well, many more calls to come for sure. And we tell those stories of the rise and the fall. In fact, you look into the Torah, the best leaders can only have those falls in order before they rise. King David is probably the best example of that. But you also talk in your book about a house being a sanctuary. I'm just going to quote a word from the Torah because we're standing before the ark. And when the Jews are in the wilderness, it says, "V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham," that you should build me a sanctuary. Not that God should dwell in it, but that you should dwell in it and bring the sacred place in. You talk about how you can get into somebody's mind and understand the sanctuary that they want. House, sanctuary. In fact, this place is not called a sanctuary, it's called a Beit Knesset. It is a house of gathering. Maybe, is there a comparison?
There's a lot that I could
there.
use in my next listing appointment after this for 20 million that I'm going on. I'm going to break out that line. There's a lot that we could do with that. I'll tell you this, look, for us, I think that I have the greatest job in the world. I am completely obsessed with what I do with real estate. I get to be there at the moment when people find their dream home. I get to be there when maybe they get married in the temple, right? And then they go buy their first home together. I get to be there at that moment. Or when they want to expand to a bigger house because they're pregnant or they're having children, or the kids go off to college. Now they're empty nesters. They need a smaller house. Whatever it is, I'm there at those important moments of people's lives, which is their home. To be part of that, and to help people go through that and hold their hand. And of course, ideally always make money on those investments, which is no guarantees. But to be part of that, you are forever on people's speed dials. And that's why I love what I do, is I get to be part of these important moments in people's lives. The home, and for me, and my wife Heather will tell you the same thing, our home is our temple, right? I have 3 temples in my life. I have my temple, right, which I love, and I come and I pray. I have my home.
First person that shows up on Yom Kippur, Sinai Temple family meeting, this man right here, in his beautiful talit. Yes.
That's a very important tallis, by the way.
You have
very
not
important.
missed one, even through COVID.
That one was from from Israel, and my grandfather bought that for me many, many years ago, and it's an agam.
Yes.
And it was the first time that anyone had ever seen that. It's an amazing tallis, and I still wear it today. And that's from my bar mitzvah.
Wow.
So, but anyways, I have here where I come and I pray. My home, which is, the home is where the heart is. That's our family temple, right? And then, funny enough, and but you know me, my gym is my preparation temple. Okay, so I have those 3 different temples in my life that are those 3 main pillars. That's why the home is so much like synagogue. Right? So it's so important to be in the right mindset in order to be successful in business and in life. And if you have that right home, you can be like, I come home after a day of many highs and many lows. Listen, we have $1 billion worth of listings at all times. We're doing 360 deals a year. Basically, and there's another 1,000 deals a year that don't make. So I'm negotiating over 1,000 deals every year. And to be able
Sounds
to come
like you have
home.
synagogue president in your future.
Yeah, right now. So I'm doing that, and then to be able to come home and check out
Right.
and be in a place of peace and happiness with my children and my wife, that's why the home is very much like the temple.
Yeah, I mean, actually, the Shabbat table, it's different on a Friday night than any other night because it becomes basically an altar of the temple, that you're doing sacred things there as well.
Yep.
And you have a beautiful quote in your book that really speaks about what we have outside on Wilshire Boulevard. It's the Torah, but it's two hands holding it, and it says Lador Vador, from generation to generation. And you said in your book, we all live in the moment because others lived in the past with a hopeful vision of the future. You totally get it of what we do here, but also what we do out there to connect those generations.
So it's interesting. So I see that obviously every time I drive by the temple. First of all, my Haftorah was Haftorah Zachor.
What's coming up in a couple of weeks?
You're
going to be asked back on the Bima.
So the Haftorah, it's
Right before
remembrance,
Purim, yes.
right? So, and it's interesting how that translates into our business and our success in real estate, is to always, look, you want to move forward, but don't ever forget.
Yes.
So in our business, I always say the biggest learning experiences and the best learning experiences I ever learn on these deals, these multi-million-dollar deals, is the ones that don't happen, where the mistakes happen, because you learn from those and you grow, and that makes you a better person. So that's really how we use the past to grow in the future. Kind of similar, if you want to look at it that way.
And then, first of all, I think you're the first guest in 80 episodes to actually quote your Haftorah. It's miraculous, and we applaud you for that. But when you look at that, you do have this ability to blend this tradition, this faith, this sports, and this business success of yours.
Yeah.
And so maybe take us back to, I've had the opportunity to meet your parents as well.
Yeah.
And they are, I would say, people of faith. Your father's not only an OB, but actually a moil, who brings young people into the covenant of the people of Israel. So what was that faith aspect growing up? And actually somebody emailed me yesterday, you got it, it comes out in the show about what Judaism means, but like, what is that in your heart that you really feel that this tradition means something to you?
So yeah, look, I obviously grew up in a home that was, or I guess I should start with my dad, who, by the way, you should have on your show.
Let's do it.
Okay, you should definitely have my dad. He's the most interesting guy in the world, smartest guy I know. So yeah, he came from basically a modern Orthodox family, and then we grew up conservative. And having that just as the backbone of our life has been it's been so valuable that it's tough to even describe it. But seeing it with my kids now, and just your outlook on life. Look, I learned many different things from many different aspects, and I know you talk a lot about sports. Sports built me how I am today when it comes to many situations in the deals that I deal with all day long. Pressure, ice water in your veins as a kicker, right? There's no I in team, right? So it's teamwork makes the dream work. All these quotes that in college football we talk about all the time. But all of being able to think like a champion, the mentality of success, preparation, visualization, all this stuff that goes into, and I don't know if you saw my Instagram this morning, I sit in the sauna for 30 minutes every morning after I spend an hour and a half at the gym every morning. I'm up way before anybody else. My preparation for every single day of my life is at least an hour and a half to 2 hours before I even get started. So there's a lot that goes into that. And that's a lot of things that I picked up from sports and obviously faith.
It's actually very rabbinic, because you might not know this teaching, but they say that the Hasidim Rishonim, the first pious people and rabbis, says Shohim Sha'a Achat Lifnei HaTfilah, that they would wait an hour before they even picked up the prayer book.
Really?
That in order to even walk into a sanctuary, you have to prepare that 1 hour to just get your mindset. And so many people come here once a year, as you know, right?
Yep.
In any synagogue. And baseball-wise, they don't hit a home run, right? Or they don't kick that winning field goal. And they walk out feeling a little hopeless. But I think what you said, that if the preparation is there, you mentioned physically, you mentioned spiritually, you mentioned emotionally, then the field goal and the home run are givens, basically.
Yep.
That you have the opportunity to open, to work, and to close as well.
Yep.
And so,
I like that.
want to talk a little bit about the Jewish aspect because you are a public personality which wears Judaism on your sleeve sometimes.
Yep.
And I know one of your close acquaintances within the football world is Julian Edelman. And what he did within the football world, specifically actually during the Tree of Life shooting in Pittsburgh, and was not afraid to say, I'm going to use my platform within sports to make a statement, and not to make a statement of divisiveness, but actually make a statement of togetherness so we could bring people together.
Yeah.
In this crazy world where there's anti-Semitism on the rise,
Yep.
with your public platform, within the sports connectivity, is there an opportunity to actually bring people together more than we divide?
Yeah, I think there is for sure. And big shout out to Julian Edelman, he is my hero. He is a very dear friend of mine, a client of mine, and seeing where he started and then his group and what they've done with his faith and Judaism and everything has been extremely inspiring to not only me and my brother as ex-athletes, but a lot of people out there, and I know that because I know a lot of people that just love him. So it's we have a stage where we have to always be very careful, especially these days. You're censored so much, you don't even know what you can say. You're almost nervous to talk.
Yes.
It's gotten to this point of just absolutely ridiculousness. But on my show, for instance, Josh and I, Josh Flagg, who actually his name is somewhere out there on the
Connected
wall.
to Sinai Temple, absolutely.
Right.
Josh Flagg. Josh and Josh.
Josh and Josh. So yeah, both of us obviously being Jewish. You'll see that. Believe it or not, because you watch the show, you'll see that in different scenes. Different things will be said or come out or this or that. I think it's very important to be able to use this stage that we have, which is, I think it's like 70 countries around the world, multi-million viewers an episode, that people understand that, look, everybody has their thoughts, their faith, their differences. But what I've seen go on in the world, and I try not to get political at all on the stage. In fact, I use my stage not to get political.
Well, we can't do that here, otherwise we'll lose our tax-exempt status, so we're good here too.
Yeah.
So the last question I want to ask is actually about a coach, because you talk about in the relationship of buyer and seller, who is the coach, where you think you would be the coach, but you actually say the client is the coach. And I want to relate that to faith, because when I was in rabbinical school, we had an essay, and we had to write God, a metaphor of God. And the artist drew pictures, and the musicians sang songs, and the poets wrote poems. And I got to send this to you, but I wrote 15 years ago now, God as a coach. And not that God is a coach that gets fired and hired and things like that, but when good things happen, often the coach gets a pat in the back. When bad things happen, the coach is sort of pushed to the side. So who is the coach in this relationship between you and your clients, and maybe that seems to have a faith connection as well?
Yeah, well, it's funny because I use this line a lot in my listing appointments, which is the seller, you're the quarterback, right? We work for you. You're the quarterback. You're calling the shots. And people like that because they want to feel in control. And look, you can only coach people as much as you want in a deal. At the end of the day, they're going to do what they want to do, but you have to trust your gut. Right. My gut, which I talk about in here, is trusting your gut. That's my coach. A lot of the times I got to make quick decisions. I just got to go with my gut. But listen, it's a big process, real estate, right? These are investments that are probably the biggest investment of 99.9% of people's lives is their home, right? So there's always a lot of emotion involved. Ideally, you don't want to have emotion involved in a deal.
Right.
Okay, you want to step outside the deal, you want to separate that, and you want to look at it as what it is, which is a deal. It's very difficult in residential real estate, which is why I love it, because the emotion, you can, as somebody who negotiates, let's say, against somebody else, which I do all day long, I love emotion because it's the easiest thing I can see. From the way people are acting, the way they're talking, the way they're everything. When it starts when they're walking through a home, you don't even know this,
right?
But I'm watching you so carefully when you walk through a house. You don't know I'm already negotiating with you before you even say you want it, and before you write the offer. Every single move you do is telling me about you. So it starts way from the beginning. And you listen, in real estate, you become an expert on so many different things that you wouldn't think you were an expert on. You're the psychiatrist. You're the you study movements, facial responses, and everything. You just become an expert. Probably what all these FBI people do, right? They study these hostage negotiators. So I'm watching every move you make, and really that's where it all starts.
Wow. And so every bar mitzvah or bar mitzvah, I ask this question: what are you passionate about, and what do you want to do when you grow up? In Syracuse, I didn't really hear real estate as the top option of children bar mitzvahs. But sitting in Los Angeles, in this unbelievable city, diverse, just really amazingly full of so many different resources, often children will say, I want to go into real estate. It's 2023. You've had your experiences, both with the Altman close, It's Your Move, an unbelievable journey, the East Coast mentality on the West Coast, the Jewish journey. You're talking to a bar mitzvah kid, wants to go into real estate. What are the success that this child needs to do and really work at to make it to that level?
So that's a good question. First of all, when I was in college at Syracuse or high school, there were no real estate classes. Which I like to think, since our show, which has been on for almost 15 years, and the next generation coming up has been talking about it, then all of a sudden you start seeing these real estate majors in schools, which is amazing. They didn't have those when we were in. And which is great about the show is this next generation watches it, and I get 1,000 emails, a month from people saying, "Oh, I'm 14, I'm 13,
That's awesome.
I'm 15, I want to get into real estate. Wow. What can I do?" And so it's great at the end of the day. The show's cool and all, but really inspiring the next generation to do good business and want to be successful and see this. That's my favorite part about it. What I would tell the next generation is this: number one, work hard, because in general, what I see with the next generation, they're extremely lazy. And I'm putting that out there, and I'm sorry to say that.
I hear it.
But they're lazy. Okay, they're used to things just being given to them now. That's not the school that I came from. If you want something, you have to earn it and you have to work at it. Just like I started in the mailroom and interned for 3 years before I even moved out here. I worked for free. You got to put in your time. Number two, you got to love what you do. Right? I feel that if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. Every day I wake up, I'm excited to do deals. I'm excited to sell houses. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I would do it if I was getting paid or not. So you got to love what you do. You got to work hard 24/7. And then the last thing I would say is, it's not just, oh, I see a $1 million listing. You sell a $10 million house. You make a lot of money. I can get a fancy car. You got to be an expert at your craft. You got to take pride in your craft. So, I can't even tell you how many hours a day I sit and I study the market. Nice. Okay, it's not just, hey, I close one deal, I get a fancy watch, or all I got to do is you got to be an expert. Everybody can close a deal here or there, but if you want to be the best, you got to put in the time.
And so it's not just you, it's not your brother, but the last piece is your bashert, your beloved Heather.
Yeah.
How does that work? Going into business together.
My CEO,
Your coach.
Yeah, my coach, Heather Altman, my wife. She's my CEO of the Altman brothers and CEO of my life. She's the backbone of our family. I am so lucky to have her by my side. Since I met her, my career has gone through the roof, and she is the smartest, most genuine, business-minded best mom I know. And I could go on forever about Heather. It's amazing. I get to work with her every single day. She's my best friend, and she converted to Judaism.
Her story is amazing.
Yeah, she's got an amazing story. You'll just have to have her one day on here to get the full story.
Open invitation. We are so thrilled and welcome and excited that we had Josh Altman, $1 million listing, Bravo TV, author of these amazing books, The Altman Close, It's Your Move, and as I said before, Sinai Temple's own Josh Altman. Josh, it's great to see you.
Rabbi,
wish you
pleasure.
Luck.
I can check this off the bucket list. I've now been up on the bimah. We're good to go.
Only the beginning of the bucket list. Thanks for joining Rabbi on the Sidelines. We'll see you next week.